On January 30, 1944, at the Anzio Beachhead in Italy, Headman Vera Hoffman, pencil trembling in his hand, pressed against the concrete wall of his command bunker and recorded what he had just witnessed through the observation periscope. Bunker Louisa, rated to withstand direct hits from 210mm shells according to Wehrmacht engineering standards, had been obliterated in an instant. 4 feet of reinforced concrete had vanished, along with 32 men of the 3rd Panzer Grenadier Division, leaving only a crater where the bunker had stood for 8 long months. The weapon responsible was the M1 240mm Howitzer, fired by the 697th Field Artillery Battalion from beyond visual range. The Americans had deployed a weapon that rendered traditional fortifications obsolete overnight. Every assumption about the effectiveness of concrete and steel in modern warfare had been shattered, as the largest artillery round yet seen in combat demonstrated both precision and devastating destructive power. Hoffman and thousands of German defenders would soon discover that no bunker, no matter how reinforced, was safe from these earthquake shells, which could transform a supposed stronghold into a tomb with mathematical certainty. The 240mm howitzer had emerged from a 1940 U.S. Army Ordnance study that concluded existing artillery was insufficient to destroy modern European fortifications. The largest American gun at the time, the 155mm Long Tom, could damage but not reliably eliminate reinforced concrete positions. The M1 specifications demanded what seemed impossible: a mobile weapon capable of firing a 360-pound shell over 14 miles with surgical accuracy, transportable on standard military vehicles, and operable by a trained crew. Unlike the massive railway guns of World War I, which were cumbersome and immobile, the M1 weighed 64,700 pounds in firing position, with a 23,000-pound, 35-foot-long barrel, and required a 14-man crew to operate efficiently. Setup took an average of 8 hours, including excavation of a recoil pit and assembly using the specialized M2 crane that accompanied each weapon. When operating at maximum efficiency, the crew could fire a round every 3 minutes. Production began in November 1942 with 6 pilot models. By 1944, Waterfleet Arsenal had achieved a rate of 13 guns per month, ultimately manufacturing 315 units before production ceased in August 1945. Each gun cost $380,000, equivalent to 12 Sherman tanks, but their strategic value proved incalculable. The arrival of the 697th and 698th Field Artillery Battalions at Anzio in January 1944 brought the first M1 howitzers to combat. The German 14th Panzer Corps had transformed the surrounding hills into interlocking fortresses commanding every approach to Allied positions. On January 30th, at 14:30 hours, the 697th fired the first 240mm combat round at a German observation post on the Alban Hills. Traveling 23,000 yards over 13 miles, the round scored a direct hit. Major Herman E. Smith documented the psychological impact. Prisoners reported complete demoralization, describing shells that made the ground quake for hundreds of meters. Many refused to occupy bunkers after witnessing the strikes. The mathematics of destruction at Anzio were precise: 2,847 rounds fired, 67 bunkers engaged, 61 destroyed, an average of 4.8 rounds per bunker, and a maximum range of 25,100 yards. The breakthrough at Monte Cassino in May 1944 demonstrated the howitzer's ability to crack the toughest defensive positions. The Gothic Line, anchored on the ancient monastery, had resisted repeated Allied assaults for months. 8 M1 howitzers from the 240th Field Artillery Battalion joined Operation Diadem on May 11th, positioned near Mano to reach every German position along the Gothic Line. Their primary targets were reinforced bunkers carved into the mountainside. British Major General Francis Tucker, whose 4th Indian Division had suffered terribly in earlier assaults, observed the bombardment and noted that the American Superheavy guns achieved what months of bombing and conventional artillery had failed to accomplish: Each round that struck home eliminated a German strongpoint completely. The psychological effect was decisive. Defenders understood that nowhere was safe. For 72 hours during the breakthrough, the 240mm howitzers fired continuously, expending 1,847 rounds and destroying 39 of 43 major bunkers, while the remaining 4 were abandoned after near misses. The combination of massive shell weight and precise fire control, via forward observers, SCR, 610 radios, graphical firing tables, slide rules, and meteorological data, allowed multiple batteries to fire with timed precision, saturating targets simultaneously. Operation Cobra in Normandy in July 1944 further illustrated the weapon's devastating effectiveness. The German 352nd Infantry Division had fortified every hedge, crossroad, and hill around St. Lo, creating a defensive maze that had stalled the Allied advance. The 272nd Field Artillery Battalion's 240mm howitzers systematically destroyed surviving strong points. Hill 122, dominating St. Lo and fortified with concrete bunkers immune to aerial bombardment, was reduced to rubble by 3 rounds fired on observer coordinates. Technical Sergeant Raymond Jones recalled that German soldiers believed they were safe in reverse slope positions, only to have the earth and concrete vanish beneath them. The 3rd Parachute Division, elite troops, abandoned prepared positions rather than face bombardment. Their commander, General Richard Shee, captured on July 31st, admitted, "Your super-heavy artillery made static defense impossible. My men, veterans who had never retreated, ran from their bunkers." In northern Italy, the assault on the Gothic Line in autumn 1944 showcased high-angle fire against mountainous fortifications. Bunkers and positions built into the ridges, designed to withstand traditional artillery, were destroyed as shells arced nearly vertically onto the targets. The Futa Pass, controlling the main route to Bologna, fell in 5 days, with bunker collapses causing more German casualties than direct combat. German war diaries noted the psychological devastation. Soldiers refused to occupy positions after witnessing repeated collapses. The M17 concrete-piercing shells, with hardened steel caps and 360 pounds of mass traveling at 2,300 feet per second, delivered 2.8 million foot-pounds of kinetic energy, penetrating 3 to 6 feet of reinforced concrete before detonation. The M114 high-explosive shell created massive craters in soil and rock, its aluminum-enhanced blast increasing destructive power by 40%. The deployment of 240mm howitzers required extraordinary logistics. Each battalion needed 50 to 100 shells daily, 2,000 gallons of fuel, specialized maintenance, and reinforced ammunition carriers. Shell production demanded precision machining to 0.01-inch tolerances, careful explosive filling, and individual proof testing. By March 1945, the U.S. Army had stockpiled over 500 rounds in European depots, consuming 35,000 per month at the peak of operations. Forward observers directed fire from the most dangerous positions, often beyond friendly lines, calling in coordinates to the Fire Direction Center, FDC, where solutions were calculated with astonishing speed. Observers like Lieutenant Robert Anderson witnessed the total destruction of 47 German bunkers in 187 days, reflecting, calling in 240mm was like summoning Thor's hammer. Each shell might kill dozens of enemy soldiers. From the Siegfried Line to industrial centers in the Ruhr, 240mm rounds demolished fortresses, factories, and medieval fortifications. The psychological impact was immense. German soldiers developed phobias, panic disorders, and the so-called bunker syndrome, reflecting trauma from witnessing the sudden obliteration of supposedly safe positions. American crews also paid a price. Hearing loss, chronic concussive injury, and the physical demands of lifting and loading 360-pound shells. Yet their precision, teamwork, and discipline turned American industrial power into battlefield dominance. By war's end, 315 howitzers had fired 118,429 rounds, destroying over 3,100 bunkers and fortifications, demonstrating a combination of mobility, accuracy, firepower, and logistical mastery unmatched by Germany, Britain, or the Soviet Union. The M1 240mm howitzer did more than destroy bunkers. It shattered the German belief in defensive engineering, created new psychological realities on the battlefield, and embodied the principle that industrial democracy could outproduce and outfight totalitarian regimes. Soldiers from Anzio to Nuremberg learned that nowhere was safe, and commanders realized that traditional fortifications were obsolete. The legacy of the 240mm howitzer extended beyond World War II, influencing Cold War artillery design, precision fire control, and modern munitions technology. Its thunder was the voice of American industrial might, proclaiming inevitable victory and demonstrating that, in modern warfare, no fortress was impregnable, no wall insurmountable, and no enemy safe from the power of a determined, industrially supported army.